Right, what have we got today? Boosh. Right, it's a Sofirn this time. Now, I don't have any Sofirn stuff, so I'm looking forward to looking at this. It's the Sofirn SP40 headlamp. So in other words, it's to stick on your head so you can see what the hell you're doing hands-free. So here's what you get in the box. So I'll tell you what, I'll pour everything out and then we can get on with things. So there's a little Christmas card or something there. Right, so there's the box empty. Boosh, chuck that in the bin. Right, let's get on with this. Right, so let's see what you get extras. So there's a USB cable with this one. Now the reason there's a USB cable with this one is because this headlamp features a USB charging, which is a nice feature. It just means once the cell's in, you can plug the whole headlamp in and charge from a USB socket. Now the interface it uses is USB. Now that's a micro USB which goes in, and then obviously type A which goes into your interface. So nice to see. You get a free cable, fine. Put that to one side. You get a piece of rubber if you don't know what the hell you're supposed to do with that, but okay. And what you got here, so you've got this is just to keep moisture away, so get rid of that. So there's the manual. Now as you know, I'm not big on reading these sort of things. Well, that looks like it's in Germany or something. Is this in English? That's in English. So there's your modes, blah blah blah. I'm not going to read that. What else we got here? Yeah, it goes on and on. Right, not interested. I've memorized that. Right. Couple of O-rings there. The O-rings are just there to increase waterproofing. So near the threaded section, so this is a threaded section between two machine parts, you have the O-ring. So you can see it there. I'm just moving it with the fingernail there. So the whole point of that is it sits in that groove and it makes sure that you get somewhat of a seal anyway between the two machine parts, because water can get in, but once that's tightened, that shouldn't happen. So you get two free ones. The whole point of giving you free ones is because if these aren't seated properly, what happens is when they're not seated and they come out at an angle and you do that, you shred them. But as long as the thing is made properly, that shouldn't happen. So nice to see you get a couple of free ones, which is about right with most of the Chinese manufacturers. You get a clip here, so you can stick the clip on. I quite like these clips for 90-degree angle lights, because what I do is, or what you can do is, if you stick it on, if I can manage to do that, oh nice. So nice firm clip, I like that. Look, and it's not moving when you engage it there. That's a really good clip actually. I like that, and I like these grooves. I like these. These give you options for attachments and lanyards and things like that. So nice to see, pretty good. And the whole point of these is it means because this is a 90 degrees, you can put this in your belt loop, or if you use PALS webbing or you're in the army or something like that, you can put it in your chest and get on with reports and working with machinery and things like that, or cooking if you're camping and things like that. So it's a nice feature to have. So I'll take that off just for now, but that's actually a really good clip. A lot of these ones come with flimsy clips that are a load of rubbish, but you get that free and that's really sturdy. I like that. So good marks for them then. What's this? Welcome to our shop. Whatever, right, bin. Now also in the pack is a replacement tube, because this section is changeable. So the head can come off and so can the tail end. So you can replace this tube section with this. Now the whole point is, here's an 18650 battery, which I'm going to be using to check this with. This is a Samsung 30Q, which I find gives best bang for buck, but you can use any cell that you want. This is an 18650 form factor, so it goes in like that. Now if you wanted to take the size of this down to something like an Army Tech Tiara or something like that, you can use the 18350 tube. So you're reducing the length. It means you can put in a much smaller battery. Obviously the problem with that is you get reduced run times, but if you're trying to reduce weight, then that's excellent. So nice to see that option in the box. You don't even have to order that separately. Well done, Sofirn. Nice to see that. Here's the headband, and do you know what? It's pretty good. If you remember my review on the H1 by Convoy, which is another cheap headlamp, I slagged it off because look, this is like weak granny's knicker elastic. This flops about. It's highly annoying. This is great because of the price, but this lets it down. Look, it's all floppy, and this isn't rigid enough to go against the head, and it tends to flop a little bit. Now look at the difference here. This is a 3-pointer, so this goes around the circumference of the head here, and this goes over the top, which gives you, it just holds it in place better. I know there are people who don't like a 3-pointer, but I prefer them. You know, even over hats they still work. I just prefer them. And this here is much more solid. It's still rubber, so it's good on the skin, but it's got rigidity to it, which I presume is better. I mean, in my testing it certainly is. If you look at the difference there, that's floppy. Look at that, that's double the width on the retaining rings there, much better. So I found this quite good. It's certainly not up to the, it's decent. It's not as good as one of my favorites, which is the Skill Hunt HO3 band, which has this internal, it's like a soft fluffiness. It's hard to see there, but can you see that's like a soft fluffy, it's almost like a fleece material. That's great on your skin. I've never had any problems with that, because some of them, if they've got little irritating bits, it can irritate your skin. That didn't happen with this. I've tested it on multiple occasions. There's a few little hard bits, but they don't come in contact with your skin, so I've got no problems with that. So that's great. The 3-pointer, nice and firm, and it's adjustable. And this rubber against the skin is absolutely fantastic. Okay, so let's go through some of the specs whilst we'll have a look at this. So here's the main unit, if I can get the camera to focus there. So it's the Sofirn SP40 headlamp. And as I say, it's an 18650 with USB charging. I'll just show you that. So let's undo this. Let's have a look at the threads. So they're pretty good, if I can get it to focus there. Yeah, they're pretty good. Nice threads, nice and clean, no gunk anywhere, no weird machining marks, nice and clear. Let's just check the top. They haven't over greased it, which just attracts dust anyway, but it could do with maybe a little bit on there. There's the top section for the head. Decent rough spring there, yeah, nice, that's quite solid. Let's get that back on there. Okay. Then we'll get the battery in and I'll show you the USB charging feature. So positive terminal to the head of the light, and then there's the bottom section there. So again, very clean for this price. I'm extremely impressed. I mean, generally at this price point, this is about 20 bucks for this light. You expect rough machining, naff machining on the threads here, naff knurling. This isn't naff, it's pretty good. The whole thing feels quite solid. It's made with quite thin material. It's almost like an O-light, where they use the thin material on the batons. But we'll get that in, and I'll show you how you charge it. So micro USB. Now it's at the back, and it's using one of these flaps. I'm not a big fan of these flaps, as you know, because they reduce the IPX rating. Now IPX just stands for ingress protection, and then the two figures after that, which are numerical, show you how good they are at. The first figure is for dust, and the second one is for water penetration. In other words, I mean, they're claiming this is an IPX7. It's unlikely, put it that way, but who am I to argue? That's what their claims are. IPX8 would be fully waterproof. You know, you put it under water and it wouldn't matter. This one is water resistant, so try to keep it out of major water. So as you can see, quite a thick retaining section there, and then this comes off and you get your micro USB. So I have a micro USB cable knocking about. There's one, and I've got it plugged in, so put it in and you should see there. So it flashes red when it's charging, and it charges at around 850 to 1000 milliamps. So it's quite a fast charger. You may want to be careful if you're using the smaller cells, but on an 18650 that's absolutely fine. If you get a quality cell, they'll take about 1000, no problem. So quite quick charging. Once that's charged, this should go green. So I'll take that out. So that feature does work. It's handy. It's nice to have. It just also something I noticed when I was testing. If you put this in, which is handy, and it's a good feature. See, it's charging. You can still use it. You can use it whilst it's charging. You probably think, well, what's the point of that? Well, it's good if you're camping or cooking or whatever, and you've been using this. You can plug it into charge and use it on a low setting, so it's still charging the battery and get on with stuff whilst it's charging. It doesn't go out of commission, so to speak. Also, if it's on your head, you can, with a long enough wire into a top pocket, you can charge it whilst it's on your head, which prolongs the amount of battery that you're getting. So a nice feature there. Not all lights do that, so well done, Sofirn. Nice to see that. So I'll turn that off. This is just a running light when it's running. So I'm quite impressed with this so far. I mean, the design's nice. The heat sinks, the heat fins here aren't really deep enough to be that effective, but it's more to do with the size of the head and the amount of material there. But I've never noticed it getting that hot. They're claiming that this will do about 1200 lumens, which, okay, that's the theoretical maximum. From my eye, it looks at least 1000, at least. It's certainly higher than the H1, which claimed about 1000, but I'm not so sure, because I tried these very close together and I checked again and again and again, and this is nowhere near the output of the Sofirn SP40, nowhere near. I mean, this is using a Cree XPL. I've seen some people mention it uses the HD version, but they don't mention that in the literature. So like I say, I'm pretty impressed, and it's got a memory mode built in, so if you it remembers what mode you last used, so you're not constantly cycling through to get them back to the mode that you wanted again. The only thing I wasn't very happy with is the fact that it's only got a 1 meter drop rating. I would always say anything that's stuck on top of your head needs a higher drop rating than something that you're going to be operating down here like a normal flashlight. So okay, I would have preferred 1.5 meters to 2 meters, but yeah, it's a cheap unit, so okay, fair enough. At least they're being honest on that. And this does have a thermal step down, and the thermal step down is about 55 degrees. So once it reaches 55 degrees, it'll step down if you're on turbo, just to maintain integrity of the components. Now, the problem with that is people say, how long does the battery last? How long does the battery last? It depends, because step down can be different. If you're where I am and it gets quite cold and it's minus temperatures, then it's not going to last. The thermal step down isn't going to kick in very fast. Whereas if you are in a hot climate where it's already 25 to 30 degrees, it's going to step down a lot quicker. So it's all dependent on the temperature. So I prefer a temperature one than a timed one, because a timed one's a bit unfair for people who are in the cold. So nice to see. Also another feature of this, I mean, you'll notice when it's running, it's green. But what happens is this also gives you some indication of the battery capacity. So what happens is, this will blink green for 5 seconds if there's less than 30% battery left in the cell that you've got in. If there's more than 30% anyway, when it's running there. Red without flashing is indicating that there's about less than 30%, so less than almost about a quarter of your battery is ready to go on there, and you need to start thinking about charging it. And if it starts flashing red, then they say you need to charge immediately. In other words, the voltage has dropped so low you're going to start damaging the cell. You really need to charge it. It's ready to go. Okay, so I'm going to quickly go through the machinations of this section here, and then I'll show you the different modes. So if you don't want to watch this, fast forward, because I know people complain, but 90% of the people who watch my videos aren't subscribed, so I'm going to quickly cover this. So generally, you've got your LED, and light just spills out all over the shop. Okay, so you're probably thinking, right, well, who cares? Who cares about this? Well, it's important, because it depends what the flashlight you're using or headlamp that you're using is going to be used for. So your first option, now what I'll do is I'll give you a quick look here. So this is the HC65 by Nightcore. Now this has a smooth reflector. So can you see the LED in the middle there with the little dome on it, and then surrounding it is a smooth reflector. Okay, so what does that do? So there's your LED. So if you imagine this is a cross section. Okay, so you still get your spill, which is light directly from the LED. So there's your spill on the wall there, but you also get directed light, and you get a spot. So what's the point of that? Well, it allows you to push light out. So if you want to get distance, you need a smooth reflector. It allows you to steer some of that light to a spot and give you distance. Now with a headlamp, you don't necessarily always want that. A headlamp isn't really what they refer to as a thrower. Most of the time what you need is something for medium range or very close. So one way around the problems inherent with that is to use an orange peel. Now firstly, I'll show you a smooth reflector. So if I turn this on, so there you go. So smooth reflector is great, but can you see what it's doing on the TrailTrek there? It's completely obscuring detail. I mean, I can't even read that there. I mean, there's your spill. Okay, this section's your spill, and then you get this central hot spot here. This is your hot spot. Now, this is the light that's trying to be fired out. Now, up close, it's not ideal, is it? I certainly wouldn't want to be cooking or disarming a bomb or fixing a car with that. Now, yes, there are ways of mitigating that by pulling this away, but you're limited by where your head is, and you might need to be close to something. But yes, you know, there are other methods where you can reduce the output, but sometimes you want a lot of output. So one method to get around that is just to use an orange peel reflector. So again, it's exactly the same, but instead of smooth, this is irregular and bumped. So an example of that would be this flashlight, so the Sofirn. So if I have a close look here, you've got the LED in the middle there, and then can you see surrounding it is this bumped and aberrated surface. So it's like a smooth reflector, but they've purposefully given it all these little bumps like an orange peel. Now you're probably thinking, what's the point of that? Well, what happens is it transitions the two zones. So you still get your spill, but your spot is transition. So I'm trying to show you a transition here between the two zones. So I'll give you a quick example of that. So I'll run this light. I'll turn it up to full. If I can get the modes there. Right, so I've got that on full. Now can you see it is obscuring detail to a degree, but can you see how it's certainly not as pronounced as the HC65 by Nightcore, which I just showed you previously there. It's mitigating the problem somewhat, and there's a bit of a transition zone between the spill here and the spot, and the spot's a little bit wider there, but that's to do with the width of the bowl here. So you're trying to get the best of both worlds. You're not going to get the light to travel as far as a smooth reflector, but it's better at medium to close range. I mean, the far end of the spectrum to that would be to use a TIR. So you have your LED, and then right over the top you plonk a solid lens. Light enters the lens and comes out as you dictate by the manufacturing of the surface here. It's called TIR, total internal reflection. In other words, it's bounced around inside, you don't lose any of that light, and bang, it comes out as you show. Now I'll give you an example of that. Now I've got the lovely HO3 here by Skill Hunt. Now if I put that on turbo, right, that's the highest setting. Now can you see, there's sort of a hotspot here, but it's so transitioned, it almost looks like the whole thing's a transition. That's a lot of light, but it's hard to specify which area is which, and it really isn't obscuring any detail to a point where I wouldn't be able to see anything. So that's great, and it spreads the light out. It's lovely for cooking and things like that and up close, but the problem is you can't get the light to go a distance. So you need to ask yourself, what's this light going to be used for? Do you need to look distance, or are you going to be up close? I would argue a headlamp is generally up close, so you should have yes, some people need distance, but generally an orange peel is a cheap way of getting a little bit of throw and good up close. But obviously if you want a specialized one, you need a TIR, and there's a close-up of the TIR. You can see then one of the benefits of the TIR is you don't have to have the height. You can see there's a big difference there. This has to have this bowl here, this reflector, whereas the TIR can just be a thin lens over the top. You save space. Okay, so I've gone over that, so all the people who hate that and have fast forwarded can rejoice and sing hallelujah. Okay, so let's go through the modes quickly. Okay, so one click on, one click off, and it's got memory mode, so it's remembering the last mode that I used. So we'll go through the modes. So you hold to go through the modes. So low is 5 lumens, 220 hours. I would have preferred to have seen maybe it's a 1 lumen mode. 1 lumen sounds a bit silly. You probably think, well, that's not enough to get anything done. It actually is and it doesn't ruin night vision. Sometimes that can be an advantage. If you're camping, that's not necessarily an issue, but I would have preferred to have seen a lower, at least one lumen or sub-lumen, but it's not the end of the world. Okay, so that gives you a nice 220 hours on a 3,400 milliamp battery, according to their literature. Okay, so your next mode, if you hold it, bang, goes up, right? 90 lumens, very nice, 15 hours. That's just, you can probably walk in the dark with that, no problems. 90 is more than enough. And then hold it again, high, takes up to a quite sensible 450 lumens, and that gives you at least 4 hours. I think they quote something daft like 4 hours and 10 minutes or something like that, or 9 minutes, but at least 4 hours from that. So nice. And then turbo is a double click. There you go. So you see that ramped up there. So turbo is, they're saying 1,200 lumens. Yeah, it's probably close to that. I would say at least 1,000. It's certainly close, maybe it's 1,100 at a push. And they're saying that gives you nearly 2 hours, 1 hour, 50 minutes. That's pretty impressive. In my testing, I didn't quite get that on turbo, but it depends on when it's stepping down. And mine didn't step down a lot because of the cold environment. So I'll turn that off just temporarily. So there's some things I want to go over though. I really like the design of this because, and I'll show you an example. So if I get the H1, I don't mean to pick on the H1 because it's good for the price, but it's got the same lens. Now, can you see what they've done here? This is wider. You're probably thinking, who cares? Well, I care, because this is what happens. Right, so it's time for a little drawing. Just a quick one though, don't worry. On this one, let's say this is me here. So there's me, standing around in the dark, minding my own business. Now, there's the headlamp. So what happens is, let's say this is, I don't know, there's some trees and what have you, and a path. So on the H1, because this isn't very wide, it's not giving you a lot of spill. Okay, and it goes down quite a bit. So what happens is, you get your spill, like that, and a bit of spot like that. Okay. Which is fine on a headlamp, but this does it better because you're getting a wider spill. Now the spill is almost, I mean, this is just going off memory from my testing, but it's definitely wider. Now you're probably thinking, what's the point of that? It does actually help. If you're trail running or you're on the side of a mountain, there's various times when your spatial awareness is increased, in my personal humble opinion, and I'm not an expert. I just find it, spatial awareness is much enhanced when you've got a wider view. You've got more for your eye and your brain to work from. I prefer this wide spill on a headlamp. It's one of the reasons I give a high mark to the, if I can find it, to the HC65. I'm sure it's something like 100 degrees. It gives you a nice wide beam, and I'll show that. See this, it spreads out, so you're seeing a lot, which is a good use of light on a headlamp. It's a feature that people don't tend to discuss, but I think it's important, and I preferred this light for that. I found it a big advantage, so I like the way they designed that. The price is absolutely incredible. I mean, look, it's very cheap. For 20 bucks, this is incredible. It's actually cheaper than the H1 and better in my opinion, although it does lack a few features. You're probably thinking, where's strobe? There isn't. I mean, you've got your on, off, and then a hole to go through. There was one feature which I found, which isn't in the literature, but I found it anyway. So 3 clicks does nothing, but 1, 2, 3, 4, you get these weird flashes, and then it doesn't work. It just flashes. It's like it's an E lockout, really. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and you're back to normal. So although it's not in the literature, it does have an E lockout, which is brilliant. I like an E lockout because it means if this is in your pocket or in a bag and it's getting pressed and banged about, it won't go on by accident. So a beautiful feature. I think they've done an excellent job there. I just wish maybe for triple they'd add some sort of strobe, or at least a beacon mode. Beacon modes are handy for camping and put it this way, outside operation type things that can be handy. It doesn't have to be like an SOS, because a lot of them have different modes, but it would be nice to add that, because you've got that space in the UI anyway where 3 clicks does nothing. Why not just add it? So maybe it's on a version 2, I would add that. Also, it doesn't have a magnetic base. Not the end of the world, is it? But it's nice to have. I find these sort of flashlights are great for DIY jobs, working on the car, and all of that is enhanced by having a magnetic base. Obviously outdoors it's not such an issue because trees aren't metallic, you can't stick them on a tree, but in and around the house I find it a good thing. One of the things I didn't like so much was this. The manual lockout is so sensitive. Watch, right, that works. Right now on a lot of lights you just give it a quarter turn, which disengages the circuit, and it acts like a physical lockout, so it can't be turned on. This, you give it, I'll show you, you give it a tiny turn. So if you look where my thumb is, right? So I'm going to give it a tiny turn. There, that was tiny, okay? No longer functions. Now you're probably thinking, who cares? Well, I care, because here's the problem. Imagine this is in your head, right? Is the headlamp. So it's like this above your forehead. What people do is to adjust in the dark, they feel for the knurl and they go, oh, there it is. And they feel for that, and they do that to tilt the light, right? So do you know what happens? Because that's in the 2 rubbers, it loosens. If you start tilting it up and down, this loosens. And I've given this to someone who has no flashlight experience, and they're constantly complaining, it doesn't work, it's knackered, it's rubbish. And all that was happening was it was slightly disengaging. That's a tiny little amount like that, and it doesn't work. Look, I'm showing you, it's tiny, then tiny back on. That's too much. They need to make a change there. because I don't notice this problem with other flashlights. That's something I would change, because people naturally in the dark, they just feel for the nail and twist by that. The way around it is you need to not touch that and do it, but it's very unintuitive. It's not how you would you don't have that problem in the H1. You know what I mean? So they either need to tighten this up or change the tolerances slightly. I mean, bear in mind, it's not because I'm using the flat top either. You know, this has like got a button there, so it's not even the excuse that it's a shorter cell, because it isn't. So that's something I would personally change. But other than that, and as long as you realize that for the price, this is absolutely incredible, I'm going to give this 8.5. And I'm going to, I can't, that's the only thing I can slag it off on. The UI on 3 clicks needs to add something, and then on the version 2 I would make alterations to this, because that's too little of a movement to lock it out. I mean, that's tiny. And then back on again. So that's how I would change it. But other than that, and if you're aware of that issue, it's not going to cause problems, because you can just quickly tighten it. So 8.5 out of 10, I think they've done an excellent job. I just want to show you some quick comparisons. So you're probably thinking, well, I'll just get the H1 by Convoy. Slightly better UI, even though it's still lacking. It hasn't got as good of a spill though. It's a little bit costly. This is rubbish. You don't get a spare shorter tube. It's not chargeable, so this is much better. So I think they've done well against the H1 by Convoy. Then let's compare it with the HC65. I mean, this is a totally different beast. You can't even take it off the mount, but for what it does as just a pure headlamp, it's great. You've got a red light, a auxiliary light, which is a high CRI, just stands for color rendering index, at low outputs. It's got this, which is great. Now you're probably thinking, well, you just said that you don't need a thrower and a headlamp. Well, yeah, but this has a thrower and it has a TIR there. Can you see it? So that has everything. So that has all the features you need, including a red light. This doesn't have a red light, but just use a lower set and you don't always need a red light. So there's the HC65. That's much more expensive. I'd probably still get this. Let's compare it to the Nova, the Olight. This is the rechargeable one with a magnetic base. They're a little bit naughty, Olight, because yes, to use the rechargeable quick recharge base, you have to use proprietary batteries, which are 3 times the cost of a normal one, so that's a little bit naughty. But the output on this is much bigger. Instead of around 1,000, you're getting about 2,000 on this, at least 1,900, 2,000. So you're getting double the output on this, but the price is fantastically higher. It's like 3 to 4 times what you're going to pay for an SP40. So that's there. Then we can compare it to something like, I mean, I can hardly compare it to the NU5, because they call this a headlamp mate. You're getting very basic functions, a small flasher, red flashes, or a low output. But it's enough to do a little bit of cooking by, but obviously because of the size, the battery sucks. So I'll put that there. And then compared to one of my favorites, the HO3 by Skill Hunt, I still really like this light. I mean, you can see it's much smaller, but that's because it's using a different lighting system. It has a TIR lens instead of this orange peel bowl. I prefer this, but it's not in fact, it is a 3-pointer, right? So I prefer the coating on this, and I like this little reflective swatch here. The heat sinks are much better. Can you see how much bigger they are? That's highly effective for dissipating heat. This has more modes than you can know to do with, so loads more modes on this, but the price is higher. You're looking at about, well, let's say 30% higher on this. I still think this is a good piece of kit, and it's got the rubberized here for the head. So are you going to be working mainly close up? Get the HO3. If you want to go outside and do camping and hiking and things like that, you may probably want to go for this. And this does have a nice wide beam similar to the HO3. So I'd be torn between the two of these, but they're for different tasks. I mean, look, the size difference as well. It's smaller, it's lighter. I really like that light, actually. It's always done well. So for DIY and stuff, that may be better. It comes with clips and it's got a mag base and things like that, whereas this lacks that, unfortunately. You could also compare it to the Omnitech. This is the Wizard Pro V3, I think. I prefer the mounting system here. You can clip it in and out, you see. You don't necessarily have to fix it. It's much quicker to get get it to hand. This uses a TIR. It deals with heat better, but the output's a lot higher. It's double the SP40, but the price on this is massive. It's like 3 times the SP40. So that's got a better tint. This is about a 5,000, 5,500 tint by my eyes. Which is nice. It's close to sunlight. I've certainly got no problems with the tint and the output. So let's push all that out the way. So I've given this 8.5 out of 10. I think they've done a fantastic job. Bearing in mind the price, 20 bucks, they've done an extremely good job, because look, you get all this stuff. You get a clip, you get another tube, all your bits and pieces. Well done, Sofirn. I was expecting this to be a load of rubbish, and it's not. But please change the UI, add a beacon or some sort of strobe for the triple clicks, and maybe do something with this very sort of, you hardly have to move it and it disengages. So that's what I would change. But as long as you're aware of that limitation and you don't need flashes and things, for 20 bucks, that's absolutely fantastic. 8.5, well done. Right, enough of me whinging, let's get out.